Hello and welcome to the Munro Method Clancast. I am Jason Munro. This is episode 87. Right, what we're going to talk about today. Let's pick one off my list. Let's go with the cravings one. Cravings. Cravings is a word that comes up a lot. Do you know what? Cravings is, we spoke about, if you've listened to many of these and you listened to the episode where we spoke about binge eating versus overeating, binge eating is a term that people use to explain all their overeating, when binge eating is a very specific term used to describe a characteristic of an eating disorder. Cravings is, again, a very simplistic blanket term that people use to try and explain why they want to eat something. Remember, most of the terms that we come up with, we do so in an effort to explain why we're doing something we think we shouldn't be. So, I just ate some crisps. I had such a craving for them. I just ate some chips. I had such a craving for them. Cravings are a very, very, very fickle thing. There are lots of things at work here. But let's address what true cravings are, right? True cravings are when your body is sending a signal to your brain to tell you that you're not giving it enough of something. So one of the most common ones, let's say that you've maybe not eaten for a while, your blood sugar is dipping a little bit. Your body will send a signal to your brain to say, we need sugar. And you will then translate that and go, I need to go to the vending machine. I need chocolate. I need Haribos. I need sweets. And this is how it works, right? Our body sends a signal to the brain, and each of us will translate that into our own version of what the response should be. And this is where things get a bit kind of ski-whiff, because this is when we start coming up with solutions to problems that we don't have. Looking for sugar boosts, looking for caffeine boosts, looking for energy boosts. So yes, are cravings a thing? Absolutely. There are true, genuine cravings where the body isn't getting something that it needs. It's sending you a signal because you're the one responsible for the things that go in your mouth. So whether that's hydration, protein, fats, carbs, whatever, food, calories in general, your body has to send you a signal, and it will do that in many different ways. It could just be the thoughts that you have. When you start to feel when I start to feel like this is when I really feel like I want to eat some chocolate. When I start to feel like this is when I really feel the need to grab some sweets. And then there's the other signals, which is when your belly rumbles, when your hunger hormones are telling you that it's time to eat. And then there's everything else, and it's the everything else that we're going to talk about today. So let's break this down to base level. Your body, people get cravings for all manner of things. There are some very common cravings among people, but you're never craving a particular food. More often than not, you are craving a feeling. You're craving a sensation. People talk about food addiction a lot. Food addiction is not a thing. People do not get addicted to food. Food isn't like cocaine or heroin or cigarettes, not like a drug, basically, which are addictive substances. When it comes to food and what can feel like food addiction, when it comes to food, it's what we get from it, right? What does that food do for us? That's what we're addicted to. That's what we want. That's what we're trying to get. And a lot of the time, that's what cravings are doing for us, right? And this is why I say it's very fickle and it's very complex, because there are so many different factors at play. Since I'm on this kind of path with it, let's talk about the kind of emotional aspect, okay? So you could be someone who uses food to cope with their emotions, or uses food to cope with stress, or uses it to navigate boredom or anxiety or your mental health in general, tiredness, etc. And at some point in life, you felt a certain way, and then you ate a certain thing, and then a connection was made. When I feel like this, when I feel sad, if I go and eat some chocolate, I actually feel happy for a minute or two. Once that connection's made, and if it's reinforced enough times, then that then becomes the default. And that's where this craving thing comes from. So if you're someone that regularly uses food to cope with their emotions, you're probably not using apples. You're probably not munching packets of cherry tomatoes. When you feel sad, you crave a very specific food, right? And it's not a craving. It's not a craving in the true sense of the word. It's something that you've created, a connection that you've made between that feeling and the feeling you want to have, right? Nobody wants to feel sad. Nobody wants to feel down. The problem with our emotions is we're supposed to be able to accept all of them. You know, you can't just take the good ones and not be comfortable with the rest of them. Something that I've had to learn very hard over the last few years when I worked on my mental health, right? We're supposed to, you know, I can't remember how many they are now. How many emotions are there on the emotion spectrum? Oh, there's a ridiculous number of them. Anyway, it's, you know, you can't just be happy all the time. You know, if you're going to lean into happiness and accept that, you also have to be able to lean into everything else and accept those too. And that's the trouble, right? It's not cravings. Food isn't the problem. It's usually an inability to regulate your emotions. And that's something you need to work on completely separately from food and all that stuff. But if we keep it focused on cravings, right? If you feel sad, if you feel down, if you've had a tough day at work, if you've had some bad news, if you've had an argument with your partner, fallen out with a friend, going through a financial worry, like whatever the case might be, it creates a feeling in you that you get regularly, one that you know about, one that you've experienced before. You don't have any way of regulating that. You don't have any way of coping with it. No positive way of coping with it. So instead, you look for something else. You know, and this is how most humans live their life, right? We're looking for the external world to make us feel better. When I feel stressed, I go and get chocolate. When I feel stressed, I pour a glass of wine. When I feel stressed, I go and smoke a vape. I mean, that's not really a great comparison, but no, it is, because we're talking about coping stuff. When I feel stressed, I scroll social media or watch funny videos on TikTok or play Candy Crush. We're very good at clawing and reaching for the outside world to come in here and make us feel better, because we're not able to do it inside. We're not able to do it up here in our minds. We lack that ability because we've not developed it, you know, for whatever reason. I didn't. I was very emotionally immature and just not fully developed on the emotion side of things until a few years ago when I went and got some help, started working on my mental health and all that stuff. So bringing it back to the cravings thing. When you feel a certain way, you crave a certain thing, but it's not really a craving. It's you looking for your coping mechanism. It's you looking for the thing that makes you feel better. Like my 5-year-old son's got a blankie that he's had since he was a baby. It's fallen to pieces. It's threads all around it, but he still uses it to this day, right? When he feels a certain way, he goes and gets that blanket. Not because he's craving a blanket. Sounds stupid when you say it like now, doesn't it? Not because he's craving a blanket, because that's what he uses when he feels like this. But when we apply it to food, it's easy to call it a craving, but it's not really. It's a coping mechanism. It's comfort. I used to be a terrible stress eater. I used to use food to cope with stress all the time. I'd be sitting at my desk, tapping away, jump up and be like, this is too much. I need to get away from my desk. Find myself in the kitchen looking for something to eat. I've not done that for many, many years now. And it's not that I don't get stressed anymore, although it has drastically reduced, but it's not that I don't get stressed. It's not that I don't feel that way anymore. It's that I've found better outlets for it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see this little box here. That is my incense box. And this is my jumbo box of Mr. Singh's Nag Champa that I light every single day. Now, I don't do it routinely. It's not like every morning I wake up and I come in my office, I light that. Sometimes I will, sometimes I don't. But if I start to feel stressed, if I start to feel like I'm kind of struggling with my workload, if I can feel that procrastination slipping in where it's like trying to take my foot off the gas, I know now, like I'm very self-aware now because I've had to do a lot of work in myself. Like when you become a coach, it's you become more aware of these things and you understand that you need to work on them. Many of you might never have worked on yourself. You might never have journaled, never have had therapy, never have spoken to a counselor, never done any self-help stuff, never done any meditation or gratitude or mindfulness or anything like that. You might be completely new to that. It takes a long time to get to a place where you can recognize your triggers and cope with them better. When I say a long time, like there's no specific time frame, but it takes work. So you're not just going to download the Headspace app and within a week be a completely different person, right? It's I've had many people reach out to me in the past about, especially when I post like the kind of suicide attempt in Christmas in 2013, people kind of respond to that and send messages like, how did you get to where you are now? And there's no one set thing. There's no one set path. There was no one book you could read. It was a combination of different things. But anyway, I am now at a point where I recognize the triggers. I recognize the signs. And I've spoken about this before where, the stress eating thing, that never goes away. I still get these little suggestions in my brain that says now would be a great time to go to the kitchen and open the fridge, open the cupboard, go look for this, go look for that. Only the difference now is I don't respond to it, right? When that happens, when I get that feeling, I've kind of reinforced that connection enough now in an opposite direction where it's like, okay, this means I am doing important work. It means I've got a big workload. It gets to a point where you don't even acknowledge it anymore. It's just cool. This means that something's going on that's making me feel a bit more stressed. What will I do? Do I need to do anything about it? It was just acknowledging it enough and recognizing it happening enough, or would I like to try and soothe myself a bit? In which case, go light a stick of incense, or go into my Spotify and put on my favorite lo-fi hip hop playlist, or big movie soundtracks playlist. These are just the things that I listen to. So I could light some incense, put on that soundtrack, and immediately I'll start to feel better. And the cool thing about those as kind of support tools, as coping mechanisms, is they don't involve eating. They don't involve calories. They don't involve physically impacting my health. They don't involve adding weight to my body. And that's all it is. Like it's not that you need to stop being stressed. It's that you need a better coping mechanism. We spoke about this many times where your total body weight is just the culmination of all of your habits combined into one. All of your habits, your behaviors, your mindset, your diet, your food preferences, your alcohol tendencies, like all of these things. Where your weight is a reflection of all of that combined. If you are carrying more weight than you want to be, it's because your diet is in a place that matches that weight. And remember, it's not just your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like your diet is everything that you eat, drink, and do related to food, which can include things like emotional eating, etc. So, Christ, way off the topic now. Coming back to cravings. You're not craving a specific food. You're craving, and this can be one of the most helpful things to do, right? When you feel those cravings, just asking yourself that question, what is it I really need right now? Now, bringing mindfulness into this can be a little tricky in the beginning because you might still be in that super reactive stage where you find yourself standing in front of the fridge or the cupboard before you've really thought about it. Once you get into the habit of questioning yourself, so when you for example, if I was starting to get stressed and getting that suggestion about going to the cupboard, right, in the beginning when I was trying to improve that, it would be, okay, what's really happening here? I know I don't need anything to eat. I've just had my lunch, I've just had my breakfast, or I've just had my dinner. I am not hungry right now, yet there is still this part of me that says I have to go eat something right now. What's really going on? What is it that I really need? Well, What's going on right now is you're working on this thing, and this thing is a bit stressful because it's taking you a long time. It's not going how you planned it. You're worrying about the deadline or if you're going to get it finished or whatever. Okay, so that's what's going on. What do I really need right now to help me with that bit of stress? It's probably not a packet of crisps. It's probably not a packet of chocolate. Those things aren't going to help me complete what I'm doing. So what would be a better thing for me to do right now? I could go stand in the back garden for 10 minutes and get some sunshine on my face and take some deep breaths. That could be all it takes. That could be your new coping mechanism. I'm going to stick my trainers on and I'm going to go out for a 10-minute walk around the block just to get a break from my desk, to give my eyes a break from this, to give my mind a rest from this task. And I'll come back to it and be ready to tackle it. That's all it is. It's coming up with that better response. Food is just such an easy response because it's pleasurable. Like I said, people are not stress eating bags of apples. Nobody is talking about their weekend strawberry binges. We do it with very specific foods. If you are reaching for chocolate or sugar or whatever, you're trying to inject pleasure into your day. You're looking for a moment of joy. And you're trying to find that pleasure and joy because you're not experiencing it right now, right? You're trying to counteract one emotion with another emotion. I am feeling stressed, anxious, overworked, overwhelmed, whatever it is. Rather than leaning into it and sitting with it and accepting it and saying, okay, I know I feel like this, but that's how it is because this is what it's like when I do this particular task. It feels like this. You can accept it and acknowledge it and move on. But what many people try to do, because they don't know how to regulate their emotions or cope with them, is try to counteract them. Well, I'm feeling sad. Chocolate will make me feel happy. Let's see if I can beat this sadness with happiness. So I'm going to have this one square of chocolate and I'm going to feel good for 30 seconds. Then the taste is going to go away. I'm going to think about the thing again. So I need to eat the other square of chocolate and the next one and the next one, right? And you're trying to hammer this sadness with brief bursts of powerless joy that only lasts for as long as you've got this chocolate in your mouth. And then the bar of chocolate's gone and you're left with the stress or the anxiety and the worry or the panic or whatever it is that you've got. So you look for the next thing and the next thing. Now you think you're binge eating. And you're not. You're just desperately trying to cope with how you're feeling with something that's super unhelpful. So these cravings, and I didn't get to that bit either. Like your body does not know what chocolate is. Your body does not know what a biscuit is, what a cookie is, what a packet of crisps are, what sweets are. It's not saying, Jason, you should go to the cupboard right now and get a tub of Pringles. Your body needs Pringles right now. This is a very specific Pringle craving. It doesn't work like that. The craving is coming from the feeling. When you feel like this, you want to feel like this. And you know that if you eat Pringles, you'll get that feeling, or chocolate, or insert food of choice here. So that's one side of cravings. So we've got the true side, we've got the kind of coping side, and then we've got the other one, which is a little bit more fun and a little bit more useless, which is our natural instincts. So once upon a time, many, many years ago, when we had to hunt, kill, skin, cook, smoke, catch, grow, plant, water, or forage, like basically before we had supermarkets and we had to grow it or kill it, we needed our kind of hunter-gatherer instincts. Just pick something on my face, as for some reason people always do, and now I'm bleeding a little bit, which is a nuisance. Why can't we leave things alone? If we left 90% of the stuff that was on our face alone, it would just go away. But no, we need to poke and prod and burst and pick. Anyway, our hunter-gatherer instincts that we have don't fit in today's world. So our hunter-gatherer instincts, right? We are supposed to react to the smell, the sight, the sound of food, the suggestion of it, right? I used to work in another lifetime. I worked for a concrete products manufacturer, right? And some days I had to go in the forklift first thing in the morning, starting at 5:30, trundling about the yard, moving stuff around at 5:30 in the morning. And our yard backed onto a big Morrison's supermarket. If you go to Morrison's, you'll know that they have a big bakery bit. They bake all their baked goods, a lot of them fresh. They also have like the cooked meat section. They make sausages and roast chicken and all that stuff. But people have to go in there at 4:00 in the morning and start cooking all that. So I'm trundling around the yard, moving stuff around, and all of a sudden, 5:45 in the morning, the wind's blowing the right way, and I'm getting a big whiff of baguette up my nose, and immediately my stomach goes. That's what my stomach sounds like. And you get that immediate reaction. Now, I wasn't even thinking about food, wasn't even thinking about my breakfast. I was just doing my job. All of a sudden, I have smelled something, granted, that smells delicious, and now I'm having a physical reaction to it. That's my stomach saying, go get me a baguette right now. So we have these things built in that make us do things like that. And it's your body saying, oh, food's nearby. Go catch it. Go kill it. Go do whatever. Sadly, in today's world where we have things like Morrison's right next to us, like if I walk 5 minutes in many directions from my house, I will arrive at a Sainsbury's, an Iceland, a Nisa, a petrol station, or a mini co-op, right? There are 5 shops within a 5-minute walk from me. And most of those are open 365 days of the year. And some of them are open till ridiculous o'clock at night. It is not difficult to get food. You can get it at all times of day, all times of night, all days of the year. We don't need these instincts anymore. They're not useful. We don't. If you're walking by a fish and chip shop and you smell fish and chips, you think you're craving fish and chips, but it's just your body responding to it saying, food, go get food now. You've just smelled it. We might not get to eat again for the rest of our lives. Go get that meal. So yeah, these are the other kind of cravings that we get where we smell food, we see somebody on social media in a restaurant doing a review and they break something open and do the cheese pull thing, and all of a sudden we're starving and all we want is cheese. I mean, I guess it would be okay to call these cravings because they kind of are like, oh, I've just seen somebody having cheese and now I really fancy it. I guess we can allow those to be called cravings, but they're really just your body responding to something you've seen, creating sometimes false hunger because you're just smelling something really nice. And because it smells really good combined with the false hunger, now you really want that thing. It's a bit like when you go to the supermarket on an empty stomach. Don't do that, ever. But if you go to the supermarket on an empty stomach versus going to the supermarket after a meal, you will come out. I wish there was a way to do this. I really wish there was a way to do this. Like split yourself into 2 versions. We could do a study on it. One person has their lunch. The other person doesn't have their lunch. They both go into the supermarket and then at the end, look at both the trolleys and compare the difference. Like one person comes out with a very sensible shop. The other one comes out with all this weird, wacky, wonderful stuff because everything looked awesome because their tummy was rumbling. Anyway, that's enough for today. We'll catch up again next time.